All right, and for our second team member, as a matter of fact, the team captain himself at that. Which deck is this one for our player B?
Player B was me. That was good old funny Demon Lords. New deck from EX6, everyone's favorite Purple Boys.
One of the star features of the set.
Oh yeah.
Love to see it.
Everyone loves their big Purple Boys being played out for cheap to nothing.
Ah yes, Evil Royal Knights.
Oh yeah. So speaking of Royal Knights, you know, one copy of Drazel.
And we got the nice one too.
Oh yeah. The day of, wanted to try it out, see how it worked. You know, looking back on that, I just didn't like it. Probably will take it out, you know, going forward. It's still always a good tech choice if you believe in the fifth name. And if you patch it as a first deck, you just could play a completely different play style.
Yes.
And then you have your 4 of gates.
Of course, of course.
Your main game plan, reduce your cost, plays out your Arudas, standard stuff.
How many times has this Drazel come up for you over the tournament?
In terms of being the first egg hatch, never.
Never.
In terms of being the second hatch, all the time, which is probably why I don't like this egg. If it comes out as the second or third, you get slowed down immensely. And so that's why I didn't like seeing him pop up.
Fair. Arguably becomes a turn skip. Understandable.
Yeah. And I will go into later over what changes I would make to the deck. So in terms of level 3s, your 4 of Lucimon.
Maxed out.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
He is your main searcher for the deck. Searches out 3, trashes, so it sets up perfectly for your gate. He will also evo into Lucimon Chaos Mode, which we'll get into later. And just being big DP means he will be out of range for a lot of DP deleting effects. Played 1 of Cyclone, expecting either the Mirror Match or Royal Knights. Somehow did not see them.
The one floodgate in a deck that gets hurt by floodgate is spicy.
However, you don't care about playing it as a turn ender because coming back, the gate will pop it. So you will never be affected by your own floodgate as long as it's not the first thing you do.
Cheat codes.
Yes. Played 1 of Porcupine. This was to set up trash because on play it mills 2 is a low-end blocker, so you can stop low-end aggression from something like an Ukomon.
Now that one I haven't seen in other builds. That's good. And we got the stamp. Ooh.
Absolutely. Played 2 Porcupines, one of your main outs to floodgates.
Ah, there we go.
In this version is your main floodgate removal. The fact that it's on play and on deletion means you can play it out to get something immediately. And then once it comes back to your turn, it means your opponent can never end on the floodgate. Played 2 Rare Months for getting stuff out of hand, getting more cards in. I would say if you aren't running something like Barumon, this would probably take for a Sistermon. Just 1 cost less is very important in this type of deck.
Oh, understandable. 100%.
And now we start getting into the Demon Lords with our level 5s. 3 Lucimons. 2 new Chaos Mode, 1 of the old ones. Probably 2 or 3 in terms of importance of Demon Lord names. The fact that he brings out any Demon Lord from your trash is so important because it lets you answer a variety of situations. This 1-0 is important as it guarantees a pop compared to the new one, which gives your opponent a choice. And a lot of times they will just simply choose to delete a tamer that they have no use for.
Absolutely correct.
So this one says, hey, that stack, I don't want it there, I'm gonna get rid of it on my own.
Absolutely, we love making people take any hits we can as opposed to letting them get a choice.
Now on to the most important Demon Lord, Breepymon.
Breepy himself.
Yes. The fact that he is just instant removal slows down people's aggression, lets you control the board a little bit. He is a blocker, so that means they can't just swing freely into your security. Sets up your trash by milling. Just accelerates your game plan for gate. He does everything you want this deck to do.
Yes, milling is very important in this deck especially.
And speaking of milling, continuing with Beelzemon.
4 copies of Beelz.
Yes, so the Digivolve comes up a lot when you're going up against stack decks because of the fact that people will like to ace if you're ever able to swing with something like the Beelz himself. if they simply have no other level 6 to go into, but they still want to get the value, they'll evo into the ace regardless. Or in cases of something like Magna, if it's able to be played out on their turn, you can simply play it before they're immune, Digivolve, and now they have nothing to go off of. Sets up your trash by getting guaranteed 4 in there. Accelerates your gate, just extremely good. The rush can come up specifically for clearing bodies that are already suspended, which comes up mainly when they are a low to the ground deck. They will try to swing, they have jamming, whatever. This comes out, simply swings at it, clears board, clears out their aggression.
Good form of a control. We do love our control decks.
2 copies of Lilithmon.
2 copies of Lilith.
During the tournament, this didn't come up as much. And I think that's strictly because of what people were trying to play, which is mainly stuff like Magna, Nume, where the leading at level 5 didn't really come up as much. I would say going forward, this probably will see more action. But for now, this would probably be kept to a lower number. It might even go down to 1. If this starts becoming more usable, then the number will obviously go up. Now,
variants.
The most important removal, Leviathan.
Leviathan, the dog himself.
Yes. He is a demon lord, so you can reduce the cost. A lot of times you'll end up playing him for 4, 3, 1. Because you typically have no Digimon on board, he'll usually get the 2 deletions, giving you a little bit of extra memory to play something like a Raramon or Porcupine, and turn on the Lucamon. Plus the fact that you will play Bitings means that you can threaten your opponent to prevent them from swarming the board.
Oh yes, we do like our trap cards.
And speaking of answering stuff, we have 2 copies of Leviathan X.
2 Leviathan X also.
Yes, so when I was making this, I came to the realization that a lot of times, if you see this in trash, you're probably going to end up putting it in your gate stack, but you also still want to keep it in trash. So by running 2, one is able to stay in your stack, the other is able to stay in your trash, and you're able to get the value of the name and the effect. Not to mention, he is 14, which can come up when people try to swing to security with the Mega, because most Megas cap out at around 12.
He turns into a guy of force and security.
Exactly. Plus the fact that Gate does not stop you from evolving. So if you play out a Leviathan, they still have stuff on board. You can go into your Leviathan X on your turn, delete them, and then control the opponent's board even harder, giving you more time to set up your wait condition. We have 1 copy of the new Leviathan.
Yes.
In my build, this doesn't come up as much, but in the changes I've made, I've seen this come up way more. That's mostly because this build, as you'll see later, does not play Tamers. And this requires you to have more board presence in terms of Digimon and Tamers.
Alright, you need to have more cards. He's a polar opposite.
Yes, which is why this comes up way more often. Your board is typically empty.
Yes.
1 of Beelzemon X. The fact that you can evo for 1 over your Beelzemon, reduce a security. Typically 1, sometimes you get to 2. Can help in matches where you might not be able to get out Widowmon as easily. You can actually whittle them down with stuff like Beelzemon X, Beelzemon Rushing, and Lilithmon's Trashing Security effect, plus Lucamon. So you have technically a way to remove all your opponent's security without going into Widowmon, and this simply helps with that.
Nice, we do like all the forms of damage.
Yes. 1 copy of Belphemon Sleep
The
Mode.
Sleepy Boy.
Amazing defensive option. The fact that it becomes immune to your opponent's effects means that you are guaranteed to have something to delete with the gate at the start of your main phase. Plus the fact that it can stop an attack means that you will not take damage that 1 turn, which could be the difference between them killing you on the following and you having 1 more turn to get your gate set up to go into a Widowmon. We run 1 copy of the old Rage Mode and 1 copy of the new one.
1 and 1.
Yes. So the reason I like this is because in something like the Numamon matchup, if they try to go wide, you play out your Sleep Mode, put the Rage Mode under, and because they typically will not go into a level 6 unless you swing so that they can blast Evo, they'll try to swarm with the board even more. And if they try to swing, Belphemon will let you discard, set up your trash for your gate. And because this goes away into your trash, Belphemon will activate at the start of main. before your gate, wiping out all the level 5s. Then gate triggers, you can put him under, still have the Belfom on sleep mode for later on, and you have a secondary copy that you can simply play out later. And this one, we play this one because it accelerates our game plan of gate, plus it lets you put trash cards in the trash to set up for it. The removal comes up somewhat, but I found that typically if I want removal, I use something like Creepy Mon.
Fair. We do like our forms of removal, and of course, Sleepy Boy and his protection are always great.
And the actual one come out the deck, Agudamon.
3 copies of Agudamon. I've normally seen 2 copies, so why do you play 3?
I play 3 because this is strictly going for this game plan. Because everything causes stuff to be set in trash while having a Digimon on board. You want to see this go into the trash as fast as possible through Porcupine, through Raremon, through getting milled by these 2. And now, you have it set up, you no longer have to worry about it. And then everything else is going to accelerate your gate. And because you are just accelerating gate, you're not doing any other shenanigans, you now know, okay, as long as I see this, I have a good chance of winning the game.
Understandable. And we do like our proper sequencing with this deck, and it's very important with this deck as well.
So that's for Digimon. And then we get into the fun part.
Fun parts.
Yes, the options. Because this deck runs quite a few. So first, 3 copies of Biting Crush.
3 copies.
Great removal. Lets you set up a Leviathan. Great for the mirror match. Great for something like NoMames who wants to swarm through effect. Can come up against any type of Vmon deck if they are playing the Davis that plays out of Vmon. It prevents them from playing out of Vmon through that unless they want to get punished. Against any rogue decks, killer option. If it gets insecurity, it's just instant removal for something like Magnamon, something like NoMames. 3 copies of Rivals. We are milling a lot, so we want to be able to have a way to recur stuff from the trash.
Oh yes, recurring stuff is great.
So apart from recurring stuff from the trash, it's just great removal. It really helps in something like the Magnamon matchup if they hit into insecurity. Helps into any stack decks that simply rely on one Digimon to stay on board. You go, no, I'm going to out it. Plus the fact that it's highest level means that a lot of the times when people are afraid of this, they'll swing low, meaning they'll typically have everything around 3 or 4. So that's where you sort of go, no, if you ever try to build up, I have the Rivals for you.
Get to play around there, playing around you.
Yes.
Outsmarting outsmarters.
Play 1 copy of 7th Lightning and 1 copy of 7th Full Cluster.
Pre-release.
So because we play both of the X antibodies of Leviathan X and Beelzemon X, you are able to use the trash effects from these. Granted, they don't cut as much, but the fact that you are able to trigger them on your own turn for some extra removal is really key. Specifically the 7th cluster, because it specifically deletes the lowest, and a lot of the times you're able to delete the highest with something like Leviathan, because you're always at a lower amount of Digimon, but sometimes they might have 3 dudes, you pop highest, lowest, now they're stuck with 1, well here you go. If you want a little bit wider removal, you go 7th Lightning combined with Leviathan X, typically is enough to clear an entire board. And just as much removal as you can in this deck helps so much with giving you enough time to set up your Agudamon. You run 3 copies of Rise.
3 copies, okay.
Yes. I was tempted to run 4, but I realized that if you really don't want to see this card in your opening hand, you want to see it around 2 to 3 turns in, because that's when you will have your trash set up. And you don't want to lower your hand in this deck early on because you want to have as many playable options as possible. By having this at 3, you tend to see it a little bit more later on in the game, which is where you want to see it, because by the time you have your gate set up to use the delay effect, you have enough stuff in trash so that you don't have to whittle down your hand. And then you still have a good chance of seeing it in your security. And if it gets in security, it's really good.
Nice.
3 copies of Mist Memory Boost. Helps set up your trash, gives you a little bit extra memory on following turns. Okay. Probably just the best memory option in this deck. Nothing much to say about that. And then I run 1 copy of Calling.
1 Calling.
I will say this came up a lot during the tournament for two reasons. One was the ability to grab back something like a Porcupamon or a Raремon. Just the extra utility that provides is super helpful. Plus the ability to trigger Lucamon Chaos Mode for one memory is extremely key. The fact that you can go Lucamon, trigger, do the effect, and then return to Lucamon itself to use it later on. So now you're calling, getting the Lucamon effect, playing out something like a Leviamon, grabbing back the Lucamon to use for a following turn, and then deleting stuff with the Leviamon to ease on their aggression.
Nice. We do like combos, little wombo combos. So what were your matchups, or at the very least, what do you believe your hardest matchup was?
Hardest matchup was easily Magnamon. Easiest answer for this deck and the truest answer for this deck. But the matchups for the day were Leviamon, NoMames, Magnamon.
Oh.
Yes.
Of course, the counter to Magna is the hardest one.
Correct.
The deck itself.
So I will say you really saw this deck perform differently in two different scenarios compared in the NoMames games. In the first NoMames game, the opponent simply found all their low-end pieces and was able to rush me down very easily. But in the second one, the opponent had a sort of more evened out hand. Like they didn't see everything early on, but they saw more pieces as the game went on. And definitely showed that as long as you don't get rushed down extremely early, you have a pretty favorable matchup into that deck. And in Magnamon, there was almost nothing you can do. The fact that it becomes immune and bigger than all your Demon Lords means that there's almost no removal for that card.
Demoralizing.
Really the best solution that you have is having a Creepymon set up with something like a Rise of the Demon Lords. So by having the Creepymon set up with Rise, you eat the hit with the Creepymon, let it get deleted, Rise will play something out, in this case something like a Leviamon, either one, because as long as you get rid of the armor, the Magnamon becomes way less of a threat. Something like a Beelzemon to Digivolve it. But if you do not have specifically these two set up, the Magnamon matchup is almost unwinnable.
Ugh. As most of the meta feels, I imagine.
But the fact that it was able to do, have a showing against NoMames, which some people would say is the best deck of the format, just shows that this has potential, as long as you don't run into the unfortunate matchup.
Ah, yes, of course, the one matchup.
And I would say this deck has so much room for customization. A lot of people will run stuff like Makos, Emperors. They'll run 4 and 4 of Biting and Rivals Barrage. They'll mess around with all of their ratios just to prefer for their own preferred playstyle. King Drasil is its own attack. You can run it, you cannot. We'll change the deck yes or no, room mode. Like there's so many different things you can do it, and it's really up to you how you want to run the deck and how you best feel comfortable with it.
Decks like this usually do have a lot of variance, and that's what makes these some of the most fun decks to mess around with.
Yes.
This is very true. All right. Thank you, Mr. NoMames, for giving us your deck profile.